The local media has been able to watch 3 Notre Dame fall camp practices, and that has included Tyler Horka and Eric Hansen from Blue and Gold. We're going to talk about 3 key takeaways from what these guys saw through those 3 days. And folks, before we dive into it, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and go over to blueandgold.com for so much more coverage of Fighting Irish football. And yeah, let's just go right to the quarterbacks, Tyler. There's been a lot of talk about these guys, obviously, with the battle, not only for QB1, but also, for like QB3 with Buckner back to the room, battling with Blake Hebert. So, but Tyler, I do want to start with Minchey and Carr. Much has been made about the 3 interceptions from Carr in the first day. I think this is the big takeaway, right? No reason for concern at quarterback right now.
Yeah, it's early, and I wrote it on that first day. Look, it was July 31st, not August 31st, and that's the date that these 2 guys, Kenny Minchey and CJ Carr, are working toward, because that's the big, season opener at Miami. And one of those 2 guys is going to start a college football game for the first time. And if it would have been July 31st, then Eric probably agrees with me that it might have got a little ugly at times. Maybe you would have seen 2, 3 interceptions, maybe. Like you said, that's how many CJ Carr had in that first practice. But look, this is practice, and I think Mike Denbrock designs this to make it hard. Like, they're going against a really good defense, too. You have to realize that as well. And this defense, we're going to talk about it a little bit later on in this video, is not going to hold punches, is not going to back down from a redshirt freshman quarterback or a redshirt sophomore quarterback. So it's the early stages of the most important practices of these guys' lives. You go back to the spring, and that was even different because Steve Angeli was still here as well. So you had that 3 quarterback thing going on. Now it's a 2 quarterback competition. Now you're just 1 month away from playing an actual football game. So you're going to see some mistakes. You're going to see some nerves. These kids are human, but I also think they're still really talented football players, and they're going to get better as this month of August goes on. And you will see, whoever wins this quarterback competition, you will see a better version of that guy on August 31st than you saw on July 31st.
Yeah, I agree with Tyler on that point. One of the things in determining separation with those 2 quarterbacks is, how do these guys get up after mistakes? Are they able to put it behind them, and then, or does that carry and you throw another interception because you're still thinking about the one you were? Mike Denbrock has designed this chaos over coddling because they need to create separation. And so I think if we're getting whispers about this kind of play a week and a half from now, then yeah, hit the panic button. But I think right now this is business as usual.
For folks thinking that this thing is just Carr's battle and this is, it's over. It's, guys, I'm telling you, it's not. This is very much a real quarterback competition. I think me and, half the Notre Dame media, much more than half the Notre Dame media, think it's going to be Carr. But I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if it ends up being Kenny Minchey. I want to move to talking about the offensive line, Eric, for takeaway number 2 here, and the impressive depth that Joe Rudolph's group is showing.
Yeah. So you remember last August, we were like, oh my gosh, who's even going to be starting in the game, and will they be able to hold up? Now you're like, okay, they plugged Sullivan Apsher in Charles Jagga's spot. He looks really good. But Notre Dame really wants to build the depth. Last year, every starter but Emil Wagner missed at least 1 game. Some of them missed a lot of games. And so they want to have guys ready to plug in. And a couple of, I think, the really interesting ones are Garby Lambert, who we weren't even sure if he'd be able to practice full go with the spring shoulder surgery. He looks great and very healthy. And then it's interesting, they've plugged Will Black into a guard spot, the 5-star tackle from New England, from Canada originally. He is playing guard, and I think that's a good place to experiment with him, just widen out his skill set and see what the fastest position is for him to be able to help you, and it might end up being guard.
Yeah, I think a big thing there is that Garby Lambert is so clearly the number 3 tackle that you're able to move Will Black inside and say, hey, let's give you some reps here, because there are more interior offensive line positions. Obviously, I don't think he's ever going to play center, but something could happen at guard where you're in a pinch there. And hey, maybe Will Black is your next best guy on the interior, because you already have that guy on the outside in Garby Lambert, who I think is just literally 1 step away. We've seen injuries with this position group over the years. It happens not just at Notre Dame, it happens everywhere where someone has to step up. And speaking of that, Sullivan Absher is doing that right now. I think that is my biggest offensive line takeaway so far with Notre Dame in camp, is that you're right, Eric. It was chaos last year where you thought it was Tosh Baker. Joe Rudolph told us as much. Hey, Tosh Baker is going to be our replacement for Charles Jagasaw. And then a couple of days later, you're seeing a true freshman in Anthony Knapp in that position. And then you're seeing Sam Pendleton right next to him at guard. You don't have that this year. You have Sullivan Absher, a 1-for-1 swap for Charles Jagasaw at right guard. And to me, you have 5 guys across the offensive line who are going to start at Miami if everyone remains healthy throughout the month of August. And that is no small thing to be able for those 5 guys to work together this entire month. And like you said, Mike, protecting a first-time starting quarterback at Miami, you want those 5 guys to be as solid as possible. And right now, I think they're building toward that.
Eric, if the offensive line is right now what we think it is against Miami, and knock on wood, say someone goes down on the offensive line, besides center, it's my understanding that like Gerby Lambert will be the next one in, whether it's left tackle or left guard, or like they're preparing him for multiple spots. Will Black is someone who comes in as a 5-star decorated offensive tackle. He's already starting to get working at guard, but of course we think that he's a tackle long term. Is that something you've seen with Joe Rudolph? It's like very positionless offensive lineman. Center might be a little specific. Some guys are just center. Like we don't think Cam Herron is going to slide from center to tackle. But is that something you've seen?
Absolutely. And Harry liked to do that too. It's the philosophy of putting your best 5 out there. And think about back to spring. Sullivan Absher, for the first time in his life, was taking center snaps. This is a guy that came in as a 4-star tackle, and he was taking center snaps. And so, yeah, I could see them wanting to be as versatile as they can, be able to move guys around. You're right. I mean, could Billy Schroth play left tackle if he had to? Yeah, he probably could and be decent at it, but there are guys that are better at moving around than others, and that's what spring and early fall camp is for. They tried to do it with Tosh Baker. They looked at him at guard and said, "Oh, that's not happening."
Sure.
So this is what makes Joe Rudolph really good is his ability to just take anybody and experiment and see if there is a fit at a different position.
Takeaway number 3, Tyler. This defense, man, lost some very talented players to the NFL draft, but it seems like it's a total reload, not a rebuild.
100%. And like in the moment, I think it was last fall camp maybe, where Benjamin Morrison said, "Hey, this Leonard Moore kid's going to be even better than me." And we all just kind of went, "Yeah, okay, dude, you're first-round draft material." And if he didn't have the hip injury, he probably would have been a first-rounder in the NFL draft. Xavier Watts, a fellow second-rounder in the NFL draft. Like you said, losing those 2 guys, and you're like, oh, what is Notre Dame going to do on defense? They're just going to produce guys that might be even better than those 2, because like Leonard Moore, if he remains healthy, he's out of here in 3 years. He is going to the NFL draft. He's going to start a lot of football games at the cornerback position. But then you look at the safety spots too, and I mentioned Xavier Watts because you're a little bit worried about losing a back-to-back All-American, a guy that was really the quarterback of the Notre Dame defense. I know you're looking at like a middle linebacker or something as that spot, and Jack Kaiser probably, you could call him that. But when you're looking at who kind of ran that show and was the guy for Notre Dame, it was Xavier Watts. You might have some guys coming down the pipeline here that are just as good in Tay Johnson and Jadon Blair. I think those 2, like you mentioned at the beginning of all this, Mike, we watched 3 practices, and 2 of the 3 days, it was those 2 guys on one day respectively who just kind of stole the show for us. And it was Johnson the first day getting those 2 interceptions off of Carr, and then we only see about 20 minutes of practice on the 3rd day, but Jadon Blair does his thing and kind of emulates Johnson in a way that those 2 safeties right there, and Eric can talk about so many other guys as well, just the talent level has increased, and it's a credit to Marcus Freeman. It's a credit to Mike Mickens. That is an absolute undeniable strength of this Notre Dame team in this era, is the defensive backs are looking like they're on a different level, and they're on that like national championship caliber of athlete that you need to win those big type of ball games.
Eric, just how athletic is this defense?
Well, I talked to Jay Hayes last week, and he's back at Notre Dame in a fundraising role, and he played for Notre Dame 2015 through 2017. He saw the back end of this defense, and he couldn't believe the difference in athleticism between the guys he played with, which included Julian Love, and this group that's out there right now. And you look at guys, freshmen like Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary running with the twos. He said one of the things, too, is the length of these guys. I mean, Leonard Moore, 6'2", with long arms, and some of the safeties. And he was watching them play basketball against the women's basketball team, and they were tomahawk dunking over Hannah Hidalgo, who's 5'6", but they were very athletic in their play. And you look at the linebackers too, Mike. I mean, this is as athletic across the board as I can remember Notre Dame being at linebacker. Really, even if you go back to the Holtz era, because linebacker was a different position than you're playing in a phone booth and not going sideline to sideline.
And I'll just add defensive line. Boubacar Traore looks like a menace. I mentioned on another one of our videos that, yeah, he might have been out with the knee injury, but boy, he was building up his upper body because he's still got that twitchiness to him, but I think he's got some strength to him now as well. And then you want to talk about strength. Bryce Young, he passes the eye test, man. You look at him and you're like, oh my gosh, that guy's going to do a lot of really good things for Notre Dame. Already has, but the future for him is off the charts.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on it. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Stay locked into this Blue and Gold YouTube channel, of course, blueandgold.com. Appreciate you all for tuning in. And as always, we'll catch you next time.